Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ASIAMET Resources Limited investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so, and these will be available via your Investor Meet company dashboard. Before we begin, if I may, I would like to submit the following poll, and if you could give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Darren McClelland. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate the opportunity this evening, where James and I are, to meet with investors today and to be able to discuss the BKM copper project and information we've just released related to our feasibility study. So, by way of introduction, I'd just like to introduce James Dio, our Chief Development Officer. He's been with ASIAMET for a good number of years and has been integral in assisting me in delivering the updated feasibility study. So yeah, like to jump into it and take you through the presentation. Okay, so today we'll be talking the BKM copper project, build-ready copper mine in Indonesia. We think perfectly timed for the energy transition. So some of the highlights from the feasibility study update, which we've just completed, certainly delivering some robust economics, just under 163 million. NPV post-tax, excluding closure. Initial life of mine revenues, $1.4 billion US. Payback period of 3.4 years, which is excellent. Only about a third of the current life of the BKM project. Internal rate of return of 21%. EBITDA over the life of mine of 655 million. An initial mining life of 9.2 years. The actual heap leaching life is right on 10 years of our production, our copper cathode production out of the heap leach. C1 cash costs $1.91 a pound, and applying the NPV to our share count, we get a project value NPV per share of 5.95p. So certainly some significant upside there for us, and as we have spoken, the BKM copper project, the heap leach project, certainly enables us to take steps forward to realising the upside across the BKM district and the KSK contract of work. So just quickly, as part of our release of the feasibility study update, we also have released an updated ore reserve for BKM. So this is utilising the new cost information from the work that we have done through the feasibility study update. So our current ore reserve for BKM sits at 40.8 million tonnes at a total copper grade of 0.7 and 0.5% soluble copper. So total contained metal, 272 kilotonnes of total copper and 198 kilotonnes of soluble copper. We have done some, I won't go into too much detail, but our flow sheet there on the right-hand side, we've made some good changes as part of this process of the feasibility study update, which have been enabled by us through the way in which we have approached design of the heap leaching facility in particular. It's allowed us to do some optimization work on setup of the processing circuit for BKM. Okay, some physicals. Most of these we have discussed previously when we had released the updated physicals for the life of mine. So none of these have particularly changed. Really can see that in terms of our copper profile, we have a couple of strong years in the early part. So year one is a ramp up of the heap leach. So there's less production, and then we hit the next 2 years, years 2 and 3, maximum copper production, just under 20,000 kilotons. And then we average around the 16 kilotons over the course of the next 6 years before the final year of the heap leaching operation, just final irrigation of the heap. So we're able to achieve the high production rate at the start. So we do access some very good grade, high soluble copper grade at the beginning of the mine life in those first couple of years, and allows us to deliver those high copper tons, and then drops down to that steady state rate of 16,000 tons per annum. In terms of our capex, a slight change from what we had released previously, which was just over 236 million. We made some final changes and adjustments to a couple of the areas around some mining infrastructure and a couple of additional items which came in, but we're also able to look at a couple of areas where we had some savings. So overall capex slightly lower than what we had issued to the market last month. In terms of capital cost intensity, looking quite reasonable, sort of sitting around that $16,000 to $17,000 per ton of copper produced. Certainly, when we talk about some of the opportunities there could be, we'd like to look at some further opportunities for improving the capital cost and certainly protecting any sort of drift to the upside. It's well placed when we look at it relative to a broader set of projects, as you can see on the right hand side. In terms of the financial and economic results, certainly some of the high points here. So we have used a long-term copper price of $3.98, and certainly some good numbers in terms of copper cathode premiums being paid in Asia. So confident to use a current number of $100 a ton for LME grade A copper cathode premiums. Revenue, as we've spoken, 1.4 billion, and EBITDA of 655 million, and net profit after tax of just under 379 million. So on the cost side, these are all of the new operating cost models that we've developed through the feasibility study. So our current mining cost of $3.37 a ton, an overall processing cost of $6.10, and our remaining support services direct costs around 34 cents a pound of copper. Total cash cost of $1.91, all in sustaining costs, so inclusive of additional indirects plus also our sustaining capital of $2.25 a pound. So in terms of our overall metrics, as you just mentioned, we have some other details on the right-hand side. So we've already mentioned our total construction cost, 235.4. We have a sustaining capital budget of 35.4 million, which is mostly related to ongoing development of the heap leach facility as we build that out over time. We also have made a significant closure and rehabilitation provision in the financial model. So all up, excluding closure, our 162.8 million NPV and 21% internal rate of return in the 3.4-year payback period. Here's some work that we did on sensitivity. So looking at our base case of $3.98, the average year-to-date copper price that was up to April 2023, so $4.06. We see that there's been a bit of weakness in the copper price just in the last week or so. And certainly, you can see some leverage, certainly leverage in terms of NPV rate of return as we see stronger copper pricing moving forward. The project is well leveraged to higher copper prices. In terms of overall sensitivities in the project, certainly the project is more sensitive to copper price and less sensitive to changes in operating cost and capital cost. So you can see the changes in operating cost relatively modest, of 5%, 10% increases. Still seeing NPV ranges of sort of 120 to 140 million, even with increases in those costs, and that is applied to those. The sensitivity is applied to the total cost for those items. So it would be a 10%, 5 or 10% increase in mining and processing, and the support services cost is the information that's seen in this graph here. So the FS, I guess importantly, the FS was being done in a period where it was relatively high in inflationary costs, and certainly some of those costs have started to come down. Even in seeing some of the information that is coming forward, sort of coming forward now, there's obviously a lowering of some of the inflation pressure, although it's still relatively high across a number of jurisdictions. But compared to where it was 6 months ago, certainly a bit of easing there. So there's some opportunities there that, again, when we're looking at construction and taking this forward into the subsequent years, then of course things can change. But just important to realise I guess, the environment in which the work was done over the course of the last 9 months. We have identified several opportunities that we can see as being some further improvements to the project, and these and certainly, we have to draw a line in the sand of completing a study as to where it is now, and some of the opportunities came in late in the process, so we weren't able to look at these, for fear of certainly pushing out delivery of the feasibility study further. So there's some good things here, and we want to look at starting some work on these soon, very, very soon. So the first one is probably the most significant, and that's a body of work that I've been speaking with people today about, where I am at the moment. And so hopefully we can look at starting some work on that in early June, and be able to go through that process and be able to look at the proposed relocation of the heat facility, and really understand conceptually if it makes sense to do that, and what the potential improvements would be. So we're aiming to work on that through June, and have an answer by the end of June, early July. And I guess the range of other things are sort of optimization processes, which we can certainly look at once we clear the decks of all of the detailed requirements and reporting required for the feasibility study, which I'll get to shortly. Just want to touch on our ESG strategy framework. So this is work that this is work which we have reported, and which was worked on with a well-known international consultancy, and really setting out our framework of how we wish to take forward our environmental, social, and governance aspects for ASIAMET as a business, and then how we will apply those to the KSK project. So certainly we have some good things in place at the moment, and an area that KSK and our BKM project is particularly strong in is the social aspects, and we need to build out further, particularly on the environmental management side, as we come into obviously construction and development, and then into operations. And as we grow as a business, certainly our governance processes can also grow with us as a business. In terms of our next steps, so we are just completing the completion and compilation of all of our chapters for the BKM project FS update. So we've issued recently our RNS announcements. We've also issued the executive summary. So we're just pulling together all of the final pieces for all of the final chapters, and all of the technical reports and details that come along with that, and being able to wrap that all up and close that out within the next 3 weeks. We would like to formally appoint a lead bank for project financing. There's been discussions which have been held certainly over the course of this feasibility study period, and certainly think that we'd like to be able to make a formal announcement on that certainly soon going forward. And then taking from the lead bank, taking through that independent technical expert, the ITE process. They will need to do a detailed review of the 2023 FS documentation, as is required by the bank's credit committees, and be able to give their independent view on the outcomes of the project and taking that forward. We will close out the work which I've mentioned before on capital and operating cost savings opportunities, and look at wrapping those up, and be able to deliver on, look at the opportunity to deliver on those, and how they can feed into an update of CapEx and OpEx as it comes out of the process with the ITE and leading into final financing. Be ideal to commence engineering design works relatively soon. There's some early works that can be done on the project, and certainly being able to recast and put in place final information in relation to the particularly any changes to process design criteria, and some other things which are the building blocks going into the detailed design. There's an opportunity, of course, subject to funding and finance. Then it would be good to get those works done sooner rather than later, to be able to lead into the detailed engineering process. Over this time, we will be certainly engaging in a wide range of project finance discussions, and engaging a broad group of opportunities for financing BKM. Certainly looking at bank debt, product offtake, equipment finance, and even potentially export credit finance. So I think there's a wide range of opportunities open to us, and we certainly want to look at exploring those opportunities, but we have to bring them to we'll have to bring them to a head as quickly as practical and as practically as possible. And certainly an opportunity to commence some early works on site. There will be some works that we need to do early in the process that aren't related to specific site works, and some off-site works which would be beneficial to be able to do on the project relatively early, and we'll have all the information we need to do that certainly before within the next couple of months. So there would be an opportunity to do some pre-works off-site not too far in the future. Just a list of the people groups that have assisted us with compilation of the feasibility study. So some really good work done by a wide range of consultants in the key areas that needed to be addressed in this updated feasibility study. Finally, going into this, I'd just like to reiterate how we view the KSK property and how we're thinking about its evolution over time. We've said often in discussions and communicating that the BKM copper heap leach SXEW is a first phase of development of KSK and the BKM mineral field. It's a good starting project. We make copper cathode immediately. We have no challenges in terms of the processes of selling and trading that. So delivering that final product as our first, as part of our first project is ideal for us in the situation we're in. So it's a really good starter project, and it enables us to build and put in place a number of the key stepping stones and building blocks to allow us to continue to develop the project. See the next phase as being an opportunity to further expand the extraction of the resource for BKM. As we know, we have over 450,000 tons of contained copper in BKM. We're recovering 156,000 tons of that copper as copper cathode in the heap leach project. There's copper remaining in the heap, and there's copper remaining in the resource still within BKM. Our view is that, and others are taking this view within Indonesia as well. There's an opportunity there for us to look at the concentrate route for copper and pyrite to be able to deliver more value out of the BKM resource. And we realise that as we develop BKM, the future of BKM is most likely moving into the flotation concentrate area. So it makes sense that we move into that area for BKM, but potentially produce that pyrite and copper concentrate, and then that naturally evolves into the process of a third phase of developing a prospect like BKZ, which has zinc, lead, copper, gold, silver, and will be processed through the route of flotation and making different concentrates, zinc concentrate, lead concentrate, copper, and then potentially a high precious metals lead concentrate as well. So the evolution of the heap leach gets us started, but it's not necessarily the future of the longer term future, but it allows us to get that footprint and get us started on site, and then allows us to be able to work on and develop the second and third phases of this business on KSK. And this is only just in the BKM mineral field, and there's additional exploration that needs to be done in the BK area, and of course then we have other prospects across the contracted work. Yeah, so ultimately getting to a point where we'd like to be producing the equivalent of 35 to 40,000 tons of contained copper over a 10-year period out of the BK mineral field itself. So that's our vision. It's our current vision to reach a 30 to 40,000 kilotons per annum of copper equivalent coming out of just that one part of the KSK contracted work, the Burung mineral field itself, and certainly there's additional prospectivity and exploration follow-up that we need to do just within that area, as well as other areas across the contracted work. BKM heap leach project unlocks the KSK contracted work, and it really establishes an operational platform that we need to grow the business. We need to grow the contracted work. So yeah, the phases 1 and phase 2 can be are able to come out of the BKM deposit as a copper only deposit, and then we get a chance to look at the third phase and be able to develop BKZ as a polymetallic deposit. We know that we need to do additional drilling in BKZ. The resource is open in a number of directions, and of course we'd like to step up the confidence from inferred to high levels of resource categories, so we could start doing work around supporting development of that asset. But it all becomes, we'd like to think that it all becomes unlocked once we can actually get an operational footprint on site, and that's what the BKM heap leach project allows us to do. And that's it. Thanks, Jake. I'll finish there. Thank you.
Perfect. Darren, James, thank you very much indeed for your presentation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the team take a few moments to review those questions that were submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Darren, James, we did receive a number of pre-submitted questions ahead of today's event, and as you can see there in the Q&A tab, we've also received a number of questions throughout your presentation this morning as well. So firstly, thank you to all of those on the call for taking the time to submit their questions. And perhaps, guys, if we just get straight into it, the first question that we have here reads as follows. You have talked about the project opportunities and next steps in your presentation. Can you please elaborate on these a bit further with respect to timing of delivery and execution, along with some of the anticipated savings that you are projecting?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jake. So, yeah, the opportunities which you mentioned before, the heap leach relocation, looking at potentially the mine scheduling, some opportunities on refinement of some of our mine scheduling and our contracting strategies. Yeah, all of those items, I would like to have investigated and closed out. So I guess our focus now for the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks is just getting everything done on the main feasibility study document, getting all of the technical work together and being able to deliver that, because that is ultimately the requirement for the discussions with an independent technical expert, etc. That needs all of the detailed documentation. So that's our focus over the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks, is get everything closed out with the current study, and then the intention will be to start work on the additional some of these additional opportunities, starting from early June. I mean, today I had a discussion with our consulting engineers here in Perth, talking about the opportunities for the heap leach facility, and we're working on a scope of work to have a look at that, as well as potentially a couple of other opportunities for just understanding a couple of the inputs into the processing design. So all of those bodies of work we would like to complete sort of, say, June, July, and into close them off in August, because ultimately they potentially lead to some decisions about execution and some changes, and there's a couple of things that we'd like to bring in sort of within that time frame. So that's sort of where we see those coming from in terms of the cost savings for those. A little bit difficult to say for a couple. I mean, I guess I have some sort of rough ideas in my head from some very preliminary work that we've done. But it's one of those things where some of the changes are going to have flow-on effects to other things, so we need to see how all of the things fit together. I think from my perspective, the biggest opportunity to try and realise is potentially this relocation of our heap leach facility, because that potentially has a more straightforward construction approach and allows us to probably not to build too much earthworks, and also helps us at a time. So that's the one that probably largely focusing on, certainly starting next month, in understanding that, to make sure we could realise that. If it doesn't have other, we need to make sure it doesn't have other impacts or other flow-on effects for the process.
Thank you very much for that, Darren. The next question that we have here asks, the additional ITE pre-review process was lengthy. Given that the project has already been examined in detail by the ITE, do the company expect the process to be quicker this time around?
Okay, I mean, they will be two relatively different processes. The sort of the pre-feasibility, the pre-work that was done with the ITE was was reviewing the previous documentation and giving and giving us that there was an engagement that ASIAMET took on themselves with the ITE to get feedback into what was needed to be done in this feasibility study update. So the next process that happens will, for an ITE, they will be working for the bank, and they will be the technical advice going to the bank to say, and for the bank to then go onto its credit committee to say that this is a solid investment, a solid project to be able to to pay back your money. So if anything, this may take a bit longer. I think that the previous process didn't drag on too long, and it gave us a huge amount of information to be able to take forward into the current study. And I've just spent the last couple of days updating the risk assessment that was done by the ITE previously, and listing out the things that we have done as part of the study to address the items that were raised previously. And I feel confident when I look at all the things that we've done, that we have gone a really long way to addressing concerns that they had when they reviewed previous work. So I think that's good. And I had a chance to meet with the ITE lead today, and take him through the most likely proposed ITE lead and be able to talk through the work that we've done, and it was a good chance to catch up and give an update on where things have gone.
Perfect, Darren. Thank you very much for that. Perhaps just turning on to the next question that we have here. It talks to the ore reserves report and asks, what was the significance of the ore reserves report, which immediately preceded the delivery of the FS?
Yeah, sure. So as part of delivering the feasibility study, required us to do an update of the ore reserve, and so we had it's one of the situations in doing these studies is that you need to do a process of sort of optimization and basically almost a mini reserve at the start of your study process with the best information you have available, so you can subsequently do the production scheduling and financial modeling, etc., to be able to take your process through. And what's important at the end of that process is that you usually end up with some different information from where you started with. So it's important that you take all of your final information from your work and effectively feed it back into the process of the open pit optimization and a final pit design, and sort of confirm where your economic ore reserve comes out. So I guess for us, what was extremely pleasing is that we adopted a pit design 6 months ago as a key input into the process that's followed all the way through. And when we've come to do our final reserve number, things have moved in costs up and down. It's really all about operating costs and from where we started with, but ultimately we've been able to effectively kept exactly the same pit and been able to report the economic material from within the pit design, which we have held over the course of the feasibility study. So it's a really good check, an important check to show what has happened over a period of time and delivery of the economic material out of the project. So there is a slight difference between what we're showing in our feasibility study schedule of 38.4 million tonnes being processed and our economic ore reserve of 40.8 million tonnes. It's a slight difference because there is a bit of a difference in some of the cost inputs, and we have a bit lower production schedule at the moment in our feasibility study. But again, that's actually one of our opportunities when we come to look at the redesign of the heap leach. Is we'll have a look at being able to contain all of the ore reserve, which actually means potentially some additional copper tons can come into the production profile with a slightly bigger heap leach facility, adopting what we have as the final ore reserve for the project. So a good outcome that it is very close to what we have taken forward as the FS schedule. They're very close to each other. Anything it's slightly larger, so you could argue that our feasibility study inputs are probably maybe slightly conservative, I guess, if want of a better term.
Thank you very much for that. The next question that we have here asks, the FS LOM is stated to be 9 years. Moving beyond the starter pit, how long would you estimate the mine could operate for?
Okay, that it's a good question. So when we're looking at, I guess we've shown a production schedule just in the presentation. So at present we have a 10-year production life from the heap leach. It's nine or just over 9 years of mining, 10 years of production from the heap leach. So when we're looking at our longer term plan, I guess I have just looked at what the opportunity might be to allow us to bring in additional stages of processing to utilize existing capacity and some of the equipment in our processing plant. So you actually increase the overall copper production units coming out of because we get to 20,000 tons in the first couple of years and it drops to 16. The idea is that at around that time it drops is to look at having the second phase come in and be able to supplement additional copper units plus pyrite and acid, etc. So being able to add additional copper units in to at least maintain or even increase the copper production out of the facility, and then the opportunity is towards the end where you have a third phase with BKZ to look at sort of expanding production capacity further. Now we haven't yet been able to do work on, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to look at how we would assess the economics of BKM. We've just done economics on what is economic for heap leaching. We need to do a whole body of work which would tell us what is the economics of further extraction of the BKM resource, but putting it through a different processing route and a different type of recovery. So it's a little bit hard to say exactly what that life would extend, what could extend to. At this stage, we've got a potential profile that goes out to 10 years, which shows an increasing level of equivalent copper production. Certainly, the resource, when I look at the resource of BKM, there's definitely some additional, there's definitely additional years beyond the 10-year life if we can find the best economic way to process the primary, the copper which is remaining. So that's the key thing for us. I mean, we know we could mine it because it's still sitting there in the pit. It's really the economics of processing and recovering that remaining copper, which is the key there. So that's what we will need to work on, particularly in that second phase of work.
Thank you very much for that. And perhaps just turning on to the next question, which asks, what is the preferred way forward on BKM KSK? Perhaps direct investment at project level? If so, are DOID still interested, or is it more likely that another party could step into this?
Yeah, it's a good question. Certainly, well, I guess going back in our history, the intention was to look at project level investment, and we still, of course, I mean, we see that as a way for us to go, as opposed to doing something more dilutive. So I mean, we're definitely project level investing is definitely an option that we are very open to, and certainly that was Doid's initial intention, and we have only just issued the feasibility study. There's obviously some discussions that could be had there, and Doid haven't been directly involved in the compilation of the feasibility study, other than the fact that one of their teams has helped us with capital cost estimation. But apart from that, that they have seen the outcomes of the study at the same time everyone else has seen those outcomes when we've released yesterday. So certainly, I'm sure that there's some opportunities for those discussions. Those discussions to take place. But we are open to. We're certainly open to other potential investors who see value in BKM as a standalone, but I think also see value in a shared vision of how we can further develop that mineral, the mineral province that is within the BK area, and also the greater KSK contract of work. So yeah, so definitely, it's definitely our we see that project level, investment is definitely, one of the big opportunities for us here.
Thank you very much for that, Darren. The next question that we have here reads as follows: Are DOID still penciled in to appoint a board representative?
Yes, there's processes. There's internal review processes, and it was, in our announcement when they made the placement in November of last year, it was the opportunity to appoint 2 board members. There's our own ASIAMET internal governance processes, and those those processes are ongoing. So yeah, certainly, when those appointments can be made and announced, then yeah, they certainly will be to the market. But those opportunities are there and remain remain available.
Thank you very much for that. I know you did talk briefly to ESG throughout your presentation, but perhaps if there's anything further to add here. A question asks, can you please elaborate a little on the ESG framework you presented and the benefits leading into financing?
Yeah, sure. The ESG, the ESG framework which we developed, which was developed with with significant, well, thanks James, I think, with assistance from ERM. That I get, it's a sort of 3-pronged approach. It looks, it's similar to other models which have been seen, but it was drawn out of a detailed materiality assessment that we did with ERM, in the business as it stands now, and also, I think my view is that we will do another one of the materiality assessment, either next year, maybe later towards next year, and as we sort of move in towards operations, because some of the materiality impacts or the materiality aspects will probably change as we get closer to the operational phase of the business. But so it was a great, it was a good exercise. It also benchmarked against other sort of leading Indonesian business mining companies and sort of where their materiality assessments sat, and I guess the key issues that they have in the key sort of issues that they have in their ESG strategy. So for us, as this is our first project. It's been in exploration. One thing I can definitely say is that for KSK and certainly leading into the BKM project, there would be very few projects that I know of that have such a strong social build-up of social capital associated with the project, just through the very long association that the company has had in developing its social links and in developing the foundation, YTS, that does a lot of the work that's related to community engagement and community empowerment in the central Kalimantan area and directly related to our business. So we've got to make sure that as we go forward, the impacts have been modest in terms of obviously what we've done as an exploration group, but those impacts become more significant as you start developing, constructing, and operating a business. So we need to make sure that from a social perspective, we maintain the engagement that we have and increase the engagement that we have, and look for all of the opportunities to ensure that local communities are empowered and do benefit, of course, from development of this project. Our environmental frameworks, of course, will expand and improve over time as we move into construction and development and operations. We have a significant, in our plans for the future, we have a significant group associated specifically with environmental management on the site, and it's going to be a critical success factor for the business to be able to deliver on those environmental outcomes, which are really critical, that we've shown in the feasibility study. And of course, our governance processes as we grow as a business, some of those governance processes, which are very strong at the moment, we'll also need to grow, and we'll have to develop some additional processes as we move into a funded construction project and into operations. So I think this is a good framework. I think one of our next steps will be to have a look at what are the opportunities for us for a simple reporting framework that also, that's good for sort of smaller scale companies like us, and how we can get into effective ESG reporting, without sort of being burdened by some of the large sort of administrative requirements of sustainability reporting. So, some really good opportunities out there for smaller groups to get active in sustainability reporting and ESG reporting, and certainly want to have a look at that, not too far down the track.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. The next question that we have here reads as follows. Many investors considered yesterday's FS announcement extremely positive, yet found the share price reaction quite surprising. Do management have any understanding for why the stock reacted the way it did?
I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not. I wish I knew. I wish I knew the answer, because I would try and do something different. So it didn't happen. In sort of direct communications I've had with some of our investors, and we've been, I know we've been looking to deliver this information for a long period of time, and I appreciate and accept that we haven't hit some of the we haven't hit milestones as we put them forward, and there have been reasons for that, but that's on me, and we certainly need to deliver better into some of those than what we have. But this is the culmination of a lot of work and getting this information out. The expectations, a bit hard to know whether the expectations of investors who hold the stock haven't been met, or see as some challenges going forward. This feasibility study was as said, is the key to being able to unlock all of the things that have to happen going forward. I mean, we needed to develop this and put this out, and it starts all of the discussions around financing. Everyone has been waiting for us to be able to present this, so we can actually start the next phase of work, which is largely just a role revolving around our financing process, and looking at bringing together all of the things we need to for project financing BKM. So I'm disappointed it wasn't received favourably. I mean, as the CEO of the company, I'd like to see that information be received favourably. I'm not entirely sure why it wasn't, but we just need to keep focus on we have a project that delivers a significant NPV. The market for copper is it may be down this week, but it's been oscillating a bit over the course of the last couple of months, a bit range bound. But the future for the copper market is so strong. I mean, I can't. The number of reports that we all probably read about where the copper market is going and the challenges associated with meeting demand in the future. I still remain, I will remain extremely bullish on copper, and I think that is, that's really the focus. We have a project we can execute. Let's get it funded, and let's start getting it constructed so we can get into producing copper metal at a time when the world is going to need more copper.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Perhaps just turning on to this question here, can you explain where we are in relation to permits?
Okay, so BK, so the project. I mean, I'll start with. I mean, the one major permit which is outstanding is what we call our PPKH, and so this is a permit that allows forestry concession or forestry designated land to change its use, basically. So it's a changing specifically a forestry land to another use. So in this case, we're changing because where BKM is situated is a forestry concession held by a forestry concession holder, a company, and we're required to convert the area which we have as our boundary into usage, into a different use other than forestry, which in this case is mining. But there's other uses. So we're converting from forestry to a mining concession. So we received our sort of preliminary permit for that on its application last year. It was in 25th of April last year, and we had 12 months to complete a series of activities associated with that, which are sort of like conditions precedent of getting that permit. So we completed all of those activities. There's one final activity, which is an agreement with the operator of the access road into the site. So we've been discussing a memorandum of understanding of sort of sharing the access of that road. We didn't quite get all of the negotiations finished, but we've submitted all of our information for this permit. The other activities we've all completed. This is one that's outstanding, and we're going through a follow-up process now to work to close that out. Once that final piece is closed out and gets submitted to the ministry, then there's a process of a couple of months, probably between 2 and 3 months to go through all of the internal processes before the final permit is issued. So we're confident. We didn't push that permit particularly too hard because there's things that become that we need to do as a result of that. So we wanted to make sure we optimise the time of working through that permit and being able to take it forward along with the project. So that's the key outstanding permit. As a result of the feasibility study, there'll be some things that we need to update as part of some preceding works which were based on the previous feasibility study. There are some things which we will need to update, which is a natural sort of progression of things associated with the regulatory framework in Indonesia. So we need to do updates to some of the feasibility studies and other studies which have been submitted previously. Now that we have new information, and in most of the cases, a lot of the changes we've made are positive, largely driven by the fact that we have a smaller footprint project now. A lot of the things around disturbed land and area and stuff have reduced from what we had previously presented. So some positive impacts from the work that we've done, but that needs to be reflected in some updating of some of the documentation which the government has at the moment. So so a lot of things those things are already in place and they're part of our plans to do as we came out of completing the feasibility study. So I think feel sort of well placed with the way our permitting is sitting at the moment.
Thank you very much for that, Darren. Perhaps just segueing on to the next question here, it reads as follows. Why did you select biomass power to site, and how long will it take to build a new biomass power station?
It's a good question. I know our last announcement was related to working with the state-owned electricity company PLN and sort of looking at a transmission line from their local substation. We sort of still have, I guess, those aspects available to us, but as we sort of came towards the end of bringing the feasibility study together and having a look at the benefits of the biomass power station or connecting into the grid and I guess some of the challenges which potentially could be presented as connecting into the grid, it started to the pendulum started to shift towards the biomass power station as a dedicated facility, as being probably the better option. And from a I guess a financial modelling perspective, the outcomes also were sort of more positive in going into that direction. So. And we also, there's quite a strong view that it is, it's a renewable power source. There's some ample fuel available for this biomass power station in the area where we are in central Kalimantan, sort of just off the logging list. But certainly, in the discussions with the proponents of the biomass power station, they are aware of the time frame in which we are looking at developing the project and when we would like to have power onto the site. So they, as long as they're able to start work on that not too far into the future, then they're confident they can meet the timeline of having power into the site as required by our current production schedule, our current construction schedule. So I mean, I'm confident there are some advantages. It becomes a standalone project on its own, and there's less linkages with others in terms of how that is approached. So there's some advantages in going to that dedicated facility. Being able to supply power to the site. So yeah, it sort of came in and I guess has sort of come in and but towards the end of this process and start looking at sort of the benefits and sort of weighing up the pros and cons. It sort of came out ahead of the other opportunities at this point in time.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Darren. And just conscious of time, perhaps just a bit more time for a few final questions. One of those being, as described previously by the company, could Darren please detail what further upside might be able to be captured from BKM itself once into production?
Okay. I guess, yeah. I mean, we've spoken about some of the opportunities that are related to being able to exploit more of the BKM deposit in terms of looking at different technologies, if that's through different processing techniques, producing concentrates and being able to recover more copper metal, but obviously requiring some further downstream processes. In terms of the resource, in terms of improvements or upside in the resource, certainly exploration. We have done work on other areas, limited work on other areas like BK South, just obviously to the south of BKM. We have another prospect, BK West, BKZ. I mean, all of those, those prospects we need to do more exploration across even just the BKM district, the area that we have. I mean, there's significant potential exploration upside that we need to continue to look to develop. And I guess, in terms of realizing that upside, though, one of the things that we need to be conscious of is, whether there's the likelihood of finding more of the material which is suitable for heap leach, which might be limited, but the resources we find may be more sort of primary type materials and require sort of that downstream processing, which is different to heap leaching. So if we're looking at developing that capability on the site, then that sort of also significantly expands the ability to find more economic resources if you have established a way of effectively recovering those resources. So exploration is one thing, having the resources, but being able to convert them into economic material through the right techniques is also important. I think one of the other interesting things around upside, which is something that we'd like to explore a bit further. We're not sure we're right at that time now, but there's actually been quite a lot of discussion over the last 6 months about different techniques and even technologies that have that different groups are developing to improve the leaching of lower grade, effectively improving lower grade heap leaching recoveries and improving copper recoveries out of from the harder to leach sort of mineralogy that you see in some of the deposits. And there's been some big announcements made over the course of the last sort of 2 or 3 months. And we're a bit smaller than some of the things that are happening, but I'm really keen to try and have a look and see if there's some opportunity for us to do some work with some people to see whether or not our BK material its recovery can be enhanced. If you can do something that improves the recovery of the existing heap leach and you get extra copper units out of recovery, then that's a huge bonus, without having to process any more material. So, I mean, there's a lot of there is a lot of focus on more effectively processing lower grade materials and some companies which are developing techniques and technologies specifically dedicated to that, which we have actually looked at starting some engagement with, but just looking at how we can do that going forward.
Thank you very much for that. And perhaps a good question to end on here. And of course, we will be able to give you back all of the questions that have been submitted by investors for you to review immediately after the presentation. But perhaps this question here, what are your thoughts about the future of the company and your learnings over the past 12 months?
I'm pleased. Things. Okay, maybe I'll start with the learnings. The learnings thing. Some things take longer than what you originally. what you originally expect them to, and need to be mindful of, of engaging with a whole range of groups, and how you can bring all of that information together, and the timeframes in which you can do things, and we want to, we will be working hard to improve delivery, and make sure that break our workflows into smaller pieces, make sure we're delivering on those, communicating regularly, and making sure people are aware of how things are progressing in the work that we're doing. And been a little bit challenging on some of that with the feasibility study, but as we go forward, things like financing and other works, then look at improving our communication and our delivery against smaller targets, and just knocking things off, and making those progressive wins, and making our way go forward. So it's important. We are a small. The thing is that we are a small team taking this forward. We are going to have to grow, and there's some key disciplines which we will need to build out as we move towards being financed, and definitely taking things into obviously construction and development. There is going to be a need for us to grow a team that helps support what will be a significant business. So that's excited about the opportunity to look at recruiting and bring on the team. We have a lot of good people, and there's opportunities with our own internal people to look at how they can develop themselves. But we will certainly be wanting to look at bringing the right people, the right capability into the business. But I'm positive about the future. We have a project here. I mean, I myself, I've put my own sort of blood, sweat, and tears into this study as well, and I know what others have put into it, and where we've got to, and I really like the opportunity we have here to develop this first mine. I mean, developing a mine is no simple feat. It's it's getting harder and harder as people are finding out, and having an opportunity here to build a startup project which really does help us unlock what is a really prospective mineral field is really exciting. So I'm talking a lot about KSK today, and I mean that's obviously what it is. It's a focus on where we are with our near term. ASIAMET as a business obviously has Butong. We still have a lot of work to do there, and sort of getting through some things to allow us to do that. But that certainly is an exciting area for the business. This is the timing of this is great. It's maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the role of copper going forward was just seen as its normal, its normal industrial self, and it was going to grow at 2 or 3% a year as normal GDP growth goes. But the transition, everything that has come about in the last 4 or 5 years in terms of transition of energy, transition of transportation to electrical energy, the use of copper is growing exponentially, and the world needs to have sources of copper, and ours is not a big source, but it's a source nonetheless, and it's our opportunity, and I think it's the right time. It's the right time to develop, the project.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Darren. And thank you very much indeed for being so generous of your time there and addressing all of those questions that came in from investors. And of course, if there are any further questions that do come through, we'll make these available to you immediately after the presentation has ended, just for you to review, to then add any additional responses, of course, where it's appropriate to do so. And we'll publish all those responses out on the Investor Meet Company platform. But Darren, perhaps before just looking to redirect those on the call, to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, if I could please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Jake, and again, thanks to everyone for taking an hour out of their, all of the investors on the call for taking the time out of their day to run through this with me, and I really appreciate questions that have the questions that have come through, and I know we haven't been able to get to all of those questions, but certainly I've got an opportunity over the next the next period, maybe over the next sort of 4 or 5 days, to be able to go and review all of the questions, and I can also give answers to those that we haven't been able to get to today. So I appreciate people's time and making making the time to join us and also to ask questions. So I really appreciate that. And I do see a positive future for the company. I'm looking forward to taking the next steps in our journey beyond delivery of this study as a key enabler, and wanting to look at getting this project financed and be able to build a project, and work with people who see the value in the business. It's our job to make sure that we can show and demonstrate to people, and groups, organisations, that what value we have inherent in our projects, and be able to make sure that it's appropriately valued in that way. So appreciate it.
That's great. Darren, James, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this morning. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This won't take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of ASIAMET Resources Limited, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good afternoon to you all.
Thanks, Joe.